If you're planning a natural birth, then let me just tell you that you need to avoid those natural birth traps. And if you are following along with the series of the natural birth traps, then you already know these traps are insidious. But you might be wondering, how do you know if something's a trap? Well, that is what this special deep dive masterclass is here to tell you. And it is shorter than the other ones, and the structure is going to be a little bit different. So, if you are following along with the Natural Birth Trap series and you've dived deep, then you probably already know about the 3 paths to empowered birth, and you know about the structure. You know about how the natural birth traps undermine your confidence. You know how they sabotage your natural birth, and you know that they lead to unnecessary interventions. I also talked in the previous video about the mainstream birth education and how it is derailing your natural birth. But you really do need to be careful. And I want to make sure that you walk away from the Natural Birth Trap series with everything that you really need to plan and get your empowered true natural birth. So in this special masterclass, we are going to go into those steps. So, the first thing that you need to understand is that your body is already designed to birth. You're going to do it whether you do anything on the outside or not, whether you prepare your body for birth or not, your body is set to birth. You conceived this baby, you're growing this baby, you're gestating this baby. Eventually, that baby is going to come out. Eventually, that baby is going to signal to your body it's time, and you will go into labor on your own. Unfortunately, our medical system and our birth culture has caused it so that you forget that you will go into labor on your own. They've also put a lot of fear into you, telling you that if you don't go into labor by a certain point, bad things are going to happen. Go and check out some of the other videos on induction and on due dates to know how to handle that. The other thing that you really need to understand is that we have a dichotomy within the birth community where there is the natural birth education perpetuated by the nurses and doctors. And then on the other side of that is the natural birth education perpetuated by doulas and childbirth educators and moms who free birth. There is a problem with this, though, is that both sides usually don't talk to each other. Both sides are usually in conflict with each other, and both sides have been traumatized. Fish can't see the water they swim in, and you happen to be swimming in the same murky waters. When you are planning to have a natural birth, the typical path to go is you go into those mom groups and you ask for all of the advice, all of the tips on how to cope with the pain. This in itself is a problem, because you are automatically assuming that birth is going to be painful and something you need to cope with. The truth is that birth can be beautiful. It can be ecstatic. You can have very little pain. You can also transmute that pain into pleasure. I mean, there's something called orgasmic birth for a reason, but we often think that that is the fringe or not necessarily what's going to happen with your birth. And because of the fact that we think that this is a phenomenon instead of the reality of what natural birth is, this then reinforces the idea that birth is mostly painful, traumatic, and leads to complications. The more that you have that mindset of thinking that birth is inherently dangerous, the more you are likely to fall into those natural birth traps. So you really do need to have that right mindset. And that is why the Reset Your Mindset for Empowered Birth Mini Challenge is so important to go through. Because if you still have those underlying fears, no amount of education is going to help you to have your natural birth. How do I know this? Well, because that is my story as the empowered mom. I was the star student. I had taken all of the birth classes. I was reading all of the books, and I was reading all of the blogs. If YouTube had really had a lot on it for natural birth, I probably would have dived into that as well. But we didn't have a lot of webinars back in the time when I was getting ready to have my first baby. This was something that came later. Facebook still hadn't gotten to the level that it is now. Same with Instagram. That was still very new. So I didn't have a lot of birth clips to go by. And it wasn't until after I had my natural birth with my son that I discovered improving birth. And I learned about profit, convenience, and liability. I'd already seen the business of being born, so I had an idea about that, but I didn't see just how deep it went. The deeper I dug into the statistics of my local hospital and health authority, the more I started to see what was really going on. The more I was sitting on meetings with birth workers, the more I could see that they had been trying to change things for several years. Sometimes decades of their life had been devoted to this, and yet nothing was changing. I also started to notice as I was a birth advocate sharing the information that no matter how much information I was sharing with these moms, they were still agreeing to that induction. They were still agreeing to that C-section, and they were still going for those membrane sweeps and agreeing to compromise on their birth plans. The more I saw this, the more I realized there was a piece missing. And that is when I created the empowered birth method, because I realized something. You're being told what to think, not how to think. And because you're being taught what to think, you automatically fall into deferring to the experts. You go and you get the pain-free methods, but then they don't work for you. And you wonder, maybe my body just doesn't work that way. When in reality, there might have been a piece missing. You can't go and get some pain-free method and then also be stuck in fear. You also can't do it if you're in an environment that's not supportive of physiological birth. And Jenny herself has also said that while there's a lot of really helpful information and birth tips, a lot of the doulas that are saying, birth can be painless. I had all my babies at home and they were painless. They are missing something. They never had trauma in their births. They never went to the hospital. So they don't know that context. And this is why it's so unique with the empowered birth method, because instead of going with the cookie cutter route of pain-free or basically natural birth, we are going through a more balanced approach. We are doing a bridged approach to birth. We're going through and we're getting your own unique map so that you know what your dream birth is. Now, a lot of my clients are like, I don't want anybody to touch me. I want to avoid a C-section. I don't want to ever be induced again. If they put me in the hospital, I'm going to freak out. So I need to have a home birth. Help me get my partner on board because I can't go back to that hospital. Whatever it is that my clients are struggling with or the empowered moms in my community have struggled with, I'm able to help them by pulling together their own map. Using my empowered birth method, this is how they do it. So the reason why Your Empowered Birth is the book that I basically had to put on YouTube to make sure that it was accessible to anyone, even if they never got a copy on Amazon, is simple. I want that information out there. The more that you're able to piece together your own map and know how to think about birth in a way that you are in the driver's seat, the less likely you are to fall into those natural birth traps, because I fell into them. I didn't think I would. I thought, I've already got everything I need. I've got the doula. I've taken the childbirth classes. I know that if I stay home, I'm going to feel safer. And if I feel safer, then I'm not going to have that pain. But then I also didn't recognize that there is something called bait and switch that happens at 35 weeks. Typically, yes, that is when they start to tell you all of the things that they want to do to you. They're not going to tell you about those natural birth traps that they want you to fall into at the beginning of your pregnancy. They're probably not even going to tell you at 25 weeks. It's typically right near the end. It's at 35 weeks and beyond that suddenly that super supportive care provider is now pushing things on you that you weren't expecting. And they're risking you out of your home birth, or they're risking you out of your birth center. They're risking you out of your midwife. Whatever it is, they're pushing you in a direction you don't want to go. This is usually when the moms come into the mom groups and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought I had everything figured out and I'm freaking out. Why are they freaking out? Because they didn't get the right education at the beginning of their pregnancy or before they started trying to conceive. They were getting the mainstream education They thought that they had everything they needed. And then at the end, they're getting tricked. And I see this so often that I coined the term natural birth traps just to basically like call it out. And I wanted to tell you that you can fall into these natural birth traps even if you think you know everything there is to know about birth. Because it's not about information, it's about your mindset. It's about being able to get past your fear. Even in my second pregnancy, as a birth advocate, as somebody who knew all of the things that could go wrong if I agreed to interventions, I still fell into those natural birth traps. I agreed to a vaginal exam that stalled my labor. I agreed to basically have my midwife come too early. And in the end, I ended up reclaiming my power. But that was because I had enough of a mindset of I'm not letting them take this from me again. But what if I hadn't been as stubborn as I was? What if I had been the kind of mom that just fell into those traps and agreed to all of the interventions? If I didn't question it, I probably would have gotten a C-section. And this is what happens to a lot of moms is they don't question it. They don't ask those questions. They don't wonder if maybe there's something else going on besides them. They internalize that feeling of, I just need to prepare my body, or I just need to go into labor before this induction. I just need to do something on the outside so that I fit into this box. And that gets them stuck too. Because as long as you're feeling stressed out, your body is not going to go into labor because it thinks a tiger is chasing it. So the more you understand this, the more you recognize that you need to basically come to your birth from a different angle than what you have been taught. You need to have that right mindset figured out. You need to have education on both sides of the dichotomy. Do not just go to the natural childbirth education and just think that that is going to help you. Because if you're going on the crunchy mama side, that is wonderful, except when you start to bring up interventions and everybody just tells you, no, you don't want to do that. And they tell you all the horror stories. And what if you actually need that induction? Don't you deserve to have the most empowered induction possible? But how are you going to understand how to do that if all you have is crunchy mama advice that avoids the induction and the medical advice that basically says, oh, it's not so bad, and they gaslight you? Well, you can't, right? And this is where Jenny fell into that trap because she did need an induction. She seriously had complications. She had chronic high blood pressure and she was approaching the point where she could have preeclampsia. She needed to have it. But because she had only read Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, she didn't have the context to create an empowered birth plan. She also didn't know that our local hospital is incredibly induction happy and that there's a lot of category 5s in there and that the midwives' hands are basically tied. She had no idea about that. But the second time that she had her empowered birth, when she planned it, she was going in with that knowledge suddenly because she had said herself, Carly, how do I take your classes? I want to learn from you just to know what happened to me. She had no intentions of having another baby. And then through learning the empowered birth method and watching as our clients were able to go and get these empowered births, and the moms in our community were starting to get these empowered births using what I was teaching, she was inspired. And she's like, you know what? I do want another one. I always wanted to have 2 kids, and I'm not going to let what happened to me stop me from having my dream. And then she decided that she was going to move up her timeline and have her baby within that year. She got pregnant after the 3rd empowered birth workshop, and she was well on her way and advocating for herself strongly. Jenny had a really thick binder of information on how she was going to go about this. She had backup plan after backup plan. Because she had chronic high blood pressure and she had a higher body mass index and she was 41 years old and she was going for a VBAC, she didn't know how this pregnancy was going to go, but she did know that she was going to take complete control of it. So Jenny got all of the information and she applied the empowered birth method to everything. She got her mindset incredibly strong, so she was able to hire the right care provider for her. She definitely didn't go into environments where she wasn't going to feel safe. She picked a different hospital to go to, one that was 20 minutes away instead of the 5-minute away drive, because she knew that setting foot inside of that local hospital was just going to be a recipe for disaster, knowing what she had now known from me. Jenny also was very, very careful about who she hired as a care provider. She had initially wanted a midwife, but because of the way that our medical system is and our birth culture, the midwife's hands were basically tied and nobody would be able to take Jenny on as a client. This is one of the problems that we have in our society currently, where moms want to have midwives, but they are restricted from having their midwives. Moms want to have home births, but they are restricted from having their home births. Moms want to have hands-off births, but the hospital won't support it. So moms feel backed into a corner, and then they free birth without actually wanting to free birth. This in itself isn't helpful. We shouldn't be backed into a corner for our births. You shouldn't have to be dodging all of these natural birth traps and trying to avoid them at all costs. You should be able to go into your birth knowing that you're going to be supported. Jenny was very, very cautious about who she hired as her doula as well. She knew because we were in a larger community and I was connected to the birth work community who she wanted to hire. And she was able to basically retain them and say, as soon as I get pregnant, I'm going to be hiring you. That's one of the advantages to being friends with doulas, of course, is that Jenny was able to take her pick and she now knew who was going to stand for her the strongest. And she hand selected her doula to do that for her. She also had been able to train up her partner. And by training up her partner and having him in her corner so strongly, because he was always listening in on our calls, and he knew that Jenny and I were working together on multiple things at the same time. He knew what his role was. So when the time came for him to catch her baby, he was all for it. So the secret of the empowered birth method isn't just some little tactic. The secret is it helps you come back to yourself. And that is why everything on my channel, empoweringmomsbirth.com, and inside of my books is free accessible information. I want to make sure that you have access to it. I also give deeper tips within my Empowered Birth newsletter. Now, here's the real secret to empowering moms, though, is that when you have an empowered birth, you are an empowered mom for life, and no one can take your power away from you again. So applying the empowered birth method in one area of your life for birth, you can also see the map for other areas. And this is where Jenny ended up deciding she wasn't going to go back and work a 9-to-5. Instead, she wanted to be a lifelong learner and she wanted to be able to create her own movements. Jenny has created the Birth House Network and she's also created Empress Birthworks. Outside of the birth space, she is also very deep into mindset. Jenny's path is to learn. Jenny's path is to continue to impart the wisdom that she has learned from others. And Jenny's path is to thrive in her own motherhood journey. Jenny is an empowered mom for life. And it is no accident that she came to me. When I first met Jenny and she said, Carly, I want to learn everything from you. At first, I didn't recognize just how powerful my system was. And then through Jenny, I was able to see that this empowered birth system, this method that I have developed, is so transformational that I couldn't possibly keep it behind a paywall. I couldn't possibly keep it secret with only allowing a few clients to have access. So after 2022, when Jenny had her empowered birth, I decided to create the Empowered Birth channel, and I decided that I was going to get my book out there into as many places as possible. In fact, when I'm traveling, I actually have copies of my book with me. If you ever see me in an airport and you want to say hi, just come on over and tell me how the empowered birth movement and the empowered birth method has helped you. I love to hear those stories. You know, a lot of my clients, they tell me, if it wasn't for you, I would have had another C-section. And I'm like, no, 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 you took your own power back. You simply found me because I chose to be visible, because I chose to speak up, because I wanted to be out there. And you found my videos or you found something in my Facebook group and you wanted to learn from me. But you chose to take that step. You chose to watch that video. You chose to take that class. You chose to go through that workshop. You got onto my email list. And that is how you ended up taking your power back. So the real thing I want you to understand is that these master classes are only going to work as much as you are putting the effort in. If you are just watching them passively, it's probably not going to work for you. But if you really dive in and you take the time to go through those master classes, or you choose a different path and go deeper, that is going to get you your transformation. But transformation happens at all levels. And depending on how fast you choose to go, how much work you put in, that transformation can happen within 3 weeks. It can happen within 3 days. It can happen within 3 months. It can happen within 3 years. The transformation is yours. The empowered birth journey is yours. And I want to make sure that you remember there are 3 paths. Premium coaching is not accessible to everyone. The reason is because this is the highest level transformation at the most accelerated rate possible. When I am working with a client, I am not just giving birth information. I am transmitting their own higher levels back at them. I am finding where they're already magical, already powerful, and I inspire them to go for their dreams beyond birth. So, you know, I've had clients who have gone back to school after having their empowered births. I've had clients who have started businesses after having their empowered births. And I've had clients who have recognized that they need to take power back in other areas of their life, such as setting stronger boundaries with their family and friends, such as leaving a partner that really wasn't helping them, but was actually holding them back and hurting them, but they couldn't see it until I showed them the map, until I showed them that they are actually the most powerful and that they deserve the best. And once they recognized their own self-worth, they were able to fully advocate for themselves within the medical community, within the birth community, and within the medical system. They are taking their power back. No permission needed. So these moms basically know that they could birth their baby anywhere. And if they choose to get assistance from the medical community, then they know how to call that in a way that doesn't deplete their resources and doesn't diminish their power. They are in control. They are not jumping into the passenger seat and allowing somebody else to drive them to a fast food restaurant when they want a 5-star steak. So the thing is, though, is that premium coaching, as I mentioned, is not available for everyone. It's not accessible to everyone. And I don't always run classes. When I'm running those classes, they are very deep, intimate containers. And the reason for that is because when I started with those intimate containers, I saw an accelerated transformation with every single one of my empowered moms. When I'm working one-to-one with someone, I'm recognizing the accelerated transformation that happens. In order to give the best quality service, I want to make sure that the moms who need it most are getting the most quality information and access to me and my team. My coaching queens also, I believe that we need to have a true work-life balance, not the kind of fake work-life balance that we're taught to do all of the things and basically over-organize, and we're just doing more of the mental load, but the true one, where you are basically in charge of your time. You're in charge of your energy. And my empowered birth coaching queens are basically moms who have gone through the empowered birth method in one way or another, and then they are giving back. They are giving some of their time to you to be able to help you to find your own map. So My coaching queens only take on those clients who are truly ready to do the work. My coaching queens also are going to be highly trained to be able to help you for 15 minutes of their time. So you have to be showing up and you need to be paying them well. And even though the laser coaching is about less than the price of groceries, it is still a steep price tag. And I don't want you to jump in if you can't afford it. That is why I have the self-study path available, because the self-study is like me coaching you without me actually coaching you. And then you can also upgrade to self-study VIP, which guarantees that you do get a spot with me or one of my coaching queens to help you after you've gone through the course itself. At any point during the actual course that you're going through, if you haven't completed it, you can ask for extra assistance, and we will send you emails that basically give you extra resources, or we'll say, oh yeah, you need this piece here. Here's the module from this course that you can also use in tandem with this, and that will help you because it's more baseline. And if you really, really are struggling and we don't happen to have an additional resource, we will give you that help. We will schedule that laser coaching call and we will solve the problem with you. We will make sure that you are actually taking control because we don't want you to come to us every time you have a problem. What we want you to do is be able to become so resourced that when you get on those calls, you're telling us, hey, I just need a little tweak in this area, and here's what I've already done. You might have also completed part of a map that we didn't have, that maybe we were working on, and now you've given us the aha moment, and we're like, oh, this is the next thing that we're going to create, the next resource, based on what this empowered mom, this empowered birth queen has brought to us. Because you are a queen in your own right, and you deserve to rule your queendom, and you are your leader of your family line. So I want to make sure that when you are going through self-study, you are doing the work, the actual transformation. You need to be ready for that. Finally, if you're not quite ready or you just want to dip your toes in still and just listen to some videos, that is what the deep dive masterclasses are for. You can always just follow our channel, listen to it. You don't even have to watch it. You can just listen to it like a podcast, and that is going to give you the overview of whatever topic that you need. But make no mistake, you need to be able to basically see that you are your own best expert. All of this information is just leading you back to yourself. And you are the one in charge of your birth. Nobody else can birth this baby for you. Now, the other thing about empowering moms, as I said, is that when you have an empowered birth, you're an empowered mom for life. No one can take your power away from you again. So even after you've had your empowered birth, you're not done. You have more transformation available to you. You can go as high as you want and go for all of your dreams. I do have other channels for that. Carly Bonderud Uncensored is basically my unfiltered video journal where I share my insights on birth and my metaphors for success. And it's basically a fun little way for you to get your feet wet in other areas and become an empowered mom for life. Whether you're wanting to birth a business, birth a movement, birth a creative project, Empowering Moms is here for you. Finally, I'm just going to remind you that we have a policy that you pay it forward, pass this on to other moms. Tell them about the Empowered Birth Method, tell them about these deep dive masterclasses, and spread the word, because a drop in the ocean creates ripples, many ripples create waves, and enough waves can change the tide. And here at Empowering Moms, we're all about changing the tide. So thank you so much again for watching the Deep Dive Masterclasses. I hope you've been enjoying yourself. And remember that we're going to be going deeper into this in the future. If you would like to know more about the other lists and traps that you could be falling into, make sure you go to the website empoweringmomsbirth.com/freebies is where we have all of our freebie guides. And if you want the full overview of the Empowered Birth Method, including all of the goodies that you can get access to, such as our newsletter, such as our self-study programs, and even to sign up for premium coaching, then all you have to do is go to our start guide, empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide. Finally, if you do have a copy of Your Empowered Birth in your possession and you have found a lot of value with it, and you would like to also kind of give back and you have social media, I encourage you to take a picture of you holding your book. I encourage you to tell others about how amazing this book is. Please leave a review on Goodreads or Amazon. And also, just pass this on, lend it to somebody else, tell others about it, encourage your local library. Say, hey, maybe you could stock this one. Tell your bookstores you might want to check out Amazon and see about this book. Whatever it is that you want to do to create the ripple effect, remember, it's going to take all of us. I don't want to put a lot of money into ad budgets. I want to focus on building birth houses. I want to focus on giving moms more access to the kind of birth that they really want. It's not right that moms who want to have home births are told that they can't have a home birth. It's not right that moms who want to have a VBAC end up going to hospitals that have a VBAC ban because they can't travel a long distance to get to a hospital that will actually support them. I want to turn that around. And in order to do that, I'm going to need to put my money into things that actually make a difference. Splashing ads all over social media is not where I want to focus a lot of my time and energy. I'd much rather have you share the information, get the algorithm to start working for us. And remember, the drop in the ocean creates those ripples, and many ripples do create those waves. So if you happen to know other birth workers that could align with empowering moms, or you are a birth worker yourself, I encourage you to reach out to me, hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com, because I'm always looking for more resources. And again, thank you so much for supporting the Empowered Birth movement. It really is going to take all of us, and you are an empowered birth queen. So stand in your power. Don't let anybody take it away ever again, and create those ripples. So have a happy, empowered birth journey, and I will see you soon. Namaste.